Howdy y'all, Christi here with Little Salty Homesteader. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I am a gardener in Zone 8A in North Texas, where it has been 105 degrees for what seems like forever. And we're actually in a little bit of the cooler part. I know much closer to Dallas has seen 110, 112 degree days, so I'm thankful we haven't gotten there yet. But it has been 105 for several weeks now. The garden is really starting to suffer, but I wanted to take you guys on an August garden tour to show you what is struggling, what's doing well, what is still alive, kind of what isn't. I know it's been a long time since I've had a video, but I thought now would be a good time to catch you guys up on everything that's been going on in the garden. So let's get to it. Okay, we're going to start right over here. I do have bags of soil here. I'm working on amending, getting stuff ready to plant for the fall, which will be in another video that's coming out soon. So this green stalk right here is the herb garden, so to speak. This flowering plant right here is anise hyssop, and as you can see there are several bees flittering around it, which was exactly why I planted it. I am not a beekeeper myself, however, I do know that there are several beekeepers close by, so I'm kind of doing my part to help those bees. Along the top here is different varieties of thyme. I have orange yellow, this is common thyme, and then I have wild thyme here. This one just really drapes down, and then this one is a lemon thyme, and it's a little variegated variety, if you can see that. Then I have a very badly struggling dragon's tail pepper. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to bring it back from the brink of death there, but I'm trying. You know, with it being 105 and it being on the top tier, it really has fallen victim to being overheated and stressed out. This is Greek oregano. It is flowering a lot and the bees really like it as well. I have several varieties of mint. I have this chocolate mint here. I would like to use it for tea. I have not tried it yet. I also have just regular, I think that's spearmint. I don't think it's peppermint, I think it's spearmint. And then I have pineapple mint right here. I'm trying not to aggravate the bees. There's also pineapple sage growing here, and it's it was really big and bushy, but you know, because of the heat it's really struggling. You can really see how the heat has really decimated a lot of the garden by looking at this tricolor sage here. It has a lot of just dead leaves and stuff on it. I added a little bit more mulch. This is pine shavings from my husband's woodworking. I did research to make sure it was safe to use in the garden, and everything that I read said that it was okay. I added the pine shavings to quite a few of my plants, and actually it really helped this rosemary. This is coming back quite strong. A lot of the needles and stuff had fallen off from being so hot and so overheated, so I'm hoping that it's going to help this sage too. And then this is just my regular common sage. It's really struggling with the heat too. This tends to do a lot better in the spring and the fall, where, you know, the days are moderate in temperature, not so insane. This is the green stalk that is planted with hot peppers, and believe it or not, it's actually looking better now than it did even just a week ago. I have come through and I have added more fertilizer. I also added some more soil to the top. I'm not sure if you can mulch green stalks with something. If you can, please let me know in the comments, because I'm not sure. I think that if I were able to mulch this, these plants would be doing a lot better. One of the things that's really struggling is this serrano plant. You can see where it's finally starting to grow some leaves back, but back in June we had a really horrific storm come through with incredibly high winds, and it almost just ripped this completely out of the green stalk, and now it is like permanently sideways growing, as you can see there. down the road, it leveled the drive-through portion of the bank. It looked like somebody literally just picked it up and set it on the ground. It just ripped the legs out from underneath it. We were thinking it was possibly a tornado, but I don't know if that ever got confirmed. So a lot of the plants on here were really struggling after that, and they're looking a lot better now. I have been fertilizing regularly. Like I said, I just fertilized last week. I added more soil a few days ago, and I've just been watering really heavily because of all of the high temperatures. This dries out pretty quick. The plants are really stressed out by the end of the day. So there's some days that I'm watering twice a day. I try to water early in the morning before it gets too hot so that, you know, the plant's roots can soak up all of that water before it's 105 outside. You can see there is some fruit set here. This is one of my jalapeno plants, but it's not doing like a super prolific job right now. However, I think once it cools down a little bit back into the 90 degree range, 85-90 degree range, I think it's going to do a lot better. This one is the purple tiger pepper. The variegation on it is really lovely. However, we weren't like the biggest fans of the flavor of the pepper. It's hot, but it doesn't really have much else going on with it. You know, like habanero has a very distinct, beautiful, kind of fruity, fun flavor. There's nothing really spectacular about that other than it's hot. So I don't think I'm going to grow it again. I'm going to stick to varieties that we really enjoy. Like we really love Buena Mulata. I think that's one of our favorites for sure. Once it ripens to red, I can use it just like I use cayenne. Fresh eating, it's really good. It has like a nice floral, fruity flavor. It's hot, but it's like a slow hot. It doesn't just kick you in the face right up front. Obviously, I'll grow lots of jalapenos for salsa. Serrano, I'll grow a ton of for salsa. I would like to be able to grow enough to dry, to get them to the ripened stage and then dehydrate them so that I can use them as chiles de arbol for other salsa preparations like the taqueria salsas. So beyond that, I will grow habanero again. We've really enjoyed that this year. Cayenne, I will always grow. Sugar Rush Peach, I will always grow. We love the flavor of that one so much. It's sweet, kind of peachy, much like the name says. It's not just the color on there. And then it has a nice heat to it. So that is that for the hot pepper green stalk. I'm not sure if I would plant them again in the green stalk. I mean, they're alive and now they're lush, but it's been kind of a learning curve trying to get them back to this point. In the spring, they were definitely lush and leafy and beautiful and productive, but in the summer, they definitely struggle. So I need to either figure out how I can shade them with a shade cloth or figure out a different place to plant them and use the green stalk for something else. But they are looking much healthier now than they were, like I said, even just a week ago. So moving on to the wild and weedy the wild and weedy flower bed. There's a lot of marigolds growing in here, and a lot of them were volunteers. The only ones that I intentionally planted were actually the Kilimanjaro white, which it's so hot that whenever they bloom, they're blooming like this. But whenever it wasn't as hot, they were beautiful white flowers that almost looked like carnations. They're stunning. I will definitely continue to grow them just because the flowers are so beautiful. I did have zinnias basically filling up the bed all the way down, and it got really wild. It was majestic. I loved it. However, all of the zinnias ended up with powdery mildew, so I just pulled them all out and I replanted, and you can see that some of them are starting to bloom again, and these will bloom until the first frost kills them, and I'm perfectly fine with that. I have one snapdragon plant left. It's been so hot that it is just fried all of the other snapdragons, which is not unexpected. Snapdragons are typically like a spring flower, so the fact that I have one left is pretty remarkable to me. However, the one plant that has just been absolutely amazing all from spring through now is actually this amaranth, and I can't remember what variety it is. I will look to see what it is, and I'll put the name of it up on the screen. But the stalks are a beautiful red, and then the leaves are like a red and green, and then the amaranth itself is red. I know that you can eat the grain, so to speak. I haven't looked up any recipes. The greens you can also eat. In the Caribbean, they use amaranth in a dish called callaloo. I'll get the correct spelling and put that up on the screen as well. And it's a greens preparation along the same lines as like southern collard greens. But I may try to make something with the amaranth greens just because the plant is doing so well, and I want to research what we can do with the grains too. Over here is the sunflower patch. Last summer I had sunflowers here, and they were so beautiful that I decided that every year I'm just going to have sunflowers in front of the greenhouse. I had more varieties. I had some really tall varieties actually. They were taller than the greenhouse. They were probably 8 to 9 foot tall, but when that storm/tornado came through, it just knocked them all over. So I just cut them down, and I replanted, but I don't know how tall they are going to get. I think it might be too shaded with this redbud tree now, which is fine. The shade is nice. It's keeping stuff from dying completely. And then I have my garden spider. Last year I had Georgia. This year I have Greta. And she, I think, is making a buffet on bees this year because of the sunflowers. This is my roselle hibiscus. You use the calyxes of the flowers for tea. So after the flower blooms, it falls off, and then what's left there where the bloom was, you use for hibiscus tea. So this is my 3rd year growing this. I'm hoping to actually get enough to actually make some tea with. It's kind of been a learning curve with this. So it grows the best whenever it's hot, which is hot right now because it's related to okra and marshmallow and other hibiscus plants. And then it puts all its flowers out in the fall. So you kind of have to hope and pray that it all works out, that you get enough flowers before the frost comes through and kills the plant, because it is a frost tender plant. And then over here we have my 2 Vigo Garden raised beds, and these have been just absolutely amazing all year long. In the spring I grew a bazillion bush green bean plants, harvested all the beans, processed those. Those are all frozen in quart-sized bags, ready for me to just use whenever I need to make green beans. And in the front here we have sweet peppers, some marigolds, and some heat-struggled calendula. It's very stressed out, but I think it'll be okay once it cools back down a little bit. We have banana peppers here, and that is also a banana pepper plant. I've been keeping it harvested pretty regularly. This one is corbachi. I have harvested about 60 peppers off of it. I dehydrated them and I ground them up. This is what I'm using as paprika, along with this. This is a alma paprika plant. So doing pretty good at growing some paprika at any rate. Obviously these gigantic tree looking plants are okra. You can see here. I actually need to come out and harvest before those get to be too tough. And the blooms are so pretty on okra. They're actually some of my favorite flowers just because they're stunning. They only last a few hours and then they shrivel up and fall off, and hopefully your okra is pollinated. I have a ton of aphids and ants doing the pollination for me, so I haven't really had too much of an issue. But I have 5 plants that are currently producing. This one here is the only one that is a red producing variety. Let's see if I can get in to show you. This is Jing orange, but as you can see, it's actually red. And it's like a longer, skinnier type, whereas a lot of these are like short and fat, like star shaped. This is my crowning achievement for this year. This is my bell pepper plant. I've been trying to grow bell pepper for, I think this is my 4th year attempting to grow bell pepper, and I'm finally successful. I have harvested several off of here. There's a few more growing here, as you can see. Right now it's so hot that they're starting to ripen whenever they're still quite small, but that's okay. I'm happy because I grew I'm happy because I grew bell pepper, and all I needed was a raised bed. And then here is a poblano pepper plant, and it's more like a poblano pepper tree at this point. It's gigantic. It's going like beyond the Jing orange okra, and it does have several little poblanos growing on it. So that's pretty exciting. I would like to get them ripened and then dehydrate them and grind them up to be used as chili powder. That is my plan for those. Really a lot of the sweet pepper stuff I'm growing for preservation purposes to use in spice blends. And it's going pretty decently. I've been able to make paprika, and then the bell peppers I've just been using for like grilled tacos or stir fries, stuff like that so far. And then hopefully I'll be able to get some chili powder made from the poblano. And this is 2 more sunflowers. Obviously they're on their way out, looking at the top, but I'm letting them just kind of stay and hang out because there's more flowers blooming as you move further down. And there is a pretty good sized spider right there. I don't know if you can see it. And then I have this guy causing a ruckus. Grasshoppers. I don't know what to do about grasshoppers, so it's just been kind of, I just flick them. Try to flick them over the fence, but they come back. This okra is a variety called Motherland okra, and if I remember right, it actually has its production closer to the fall. So this one actually isn't currently producing, but it is growing and it is healthy. So I think once we get closer to fall, it will start setting some fruits, and those are like short, super stubby fruits that basically are best, you know, if you like cut them in half and roast them. So I'm excited about those. And then we have some, this is cinnamon basil, and it does have a slight cinnamon smell to it. I use basil a lot to make like an iced tea with. This one is really good for iced tea. This holy basil is really good as an iced tea. And then I have lemon basil over there underneath the okra tree that is also fantastic for using for tea. I have more sweet peppers here. The plan is to use most of them as a paprika blend. This one is a Jimmy Nardello. It actually is supposed to get much bigger, but I think because it's so hot, it's just really struggling. This is Purple Beauty bell pepper, and I think I harvested it the other day. It does have a few blooms on it. I'm expecting it to do much more production once we're below the triple-digit temperatures. Nothing can really keep up with this heat except the okra. This one is habanada. We actually have harvested several habanadas off of here. If you're not familiar with the habanada, it's a non-spicy pepper. It has the flavor of a habanero without the heat. It's sweet, but with that habanero kind of fruitiness and distinct flavor profile. It's really good. My husband and I really enjoy it. I don't think Logan tried it. I think he likes it as well. But Lily has not tried it, and then my oldest hasn't tried it. And then this is shishito. It is setting fruit, but as you can see, it's all ripening whenever it's just like nubbin sized. So I don't know if I just need to cut this plant back, let it like focus its energy into growing new leaves for a little while. I think maybe it set so many fruits simultaneously that it didn't have enough energy to put into actually growing them. I'm not really sure. But I mean, it is prolific. They're just tiny and I can't do anything with them. Then this is a variety of okra. Oh my goodness, I must have missed that one yesterday. Look at this giant. This variety is called White Velvet, and it is velvety. It's smooth, it's not ribbed like the other ones down here. It's been quite tender, even at this giant, like witch's finger size. But I do need to come out here and harvest, so I'm glad that I saw that. And then I have, it's so hot out here already. I have a couple of tomato plants that are still left back here. I removed the other ones already just because they were so infested with spider mites. I just didn't have the patience to deal with it anymore, trying to get rid of them. So this is a Rosella cherry. Once it cools down, it will be quite prolific. I did cut it back substantially. This was the main branch here, and I cut it back to where it was shooting off growth down low, and I'm just letting it put its energy into growing a new healthy stalk right now, or stem, or whatever we want to call this. And then once it cools back down, it will give us another run of cherry tomatoes. This one is the Woolly Kate, and I'm not sure if it's just crispy from the heat or if it's starting to get sick. It looks like possibly spider mites. You can see the webbing there, so I may cut this one down. We did really enjoy the tomatoes off of this. They were cocktail sized, so probably about that size. And then they were yellow and they had purple shoulders, and they were a little bit fuzzy like a peach, so the name Woolly Kate. These were created in Hawaii to be humidity tolerant, slightly heat tolerant, and it did really well. I think that the spider mite thing is new for this plant, so I think I'm just gonna, honestly, I think I'm just gonna cut it down, make room for fall stuff. It's time to start planting all that and getting that rocking and rolling. So yeah, I think that that's what's going to be my next step as far as this tomato plant. But it did make my top 10 list as far as the tomatoes that did produce for me this year, which I will talk more about in another video. But it was fun. It was flavorful. It was juicy. It was like almost everything that you wanted it to be in a smaller tomato. But the plant did not get very big. It just wasn't as prolific as I wanted it to be, and that could be the fault of the grower and not the fruit. So I am definitely going to try to grow it again. And then over here is what is left of the wild unruly tomato patch. You can see a ton of basil that has gone to seed. Right now I'm feeding the butterflies with it. I do use some of it for tea, but because it has gone to seed so badly, it's getting a little bit tricky to try to find the tea-worthy stalks of basil without having to weed through all the seeds. So it was a rough tomato season. It was a really rough tomato season. Everything started out really beautifully. We got a lot more rain earlier this year. The plants were really healthy. However, I had a rodent issue appear out of nowhere, and it went from no rodents to overly infested literally overnight, and they were eating all of my tomatoes. They got probably 70% of my entire tomato harvest before I got the issue under control. My Black Beauty tomato, I had probably 30 tomatoes on that plant, and I was only able to get one because they just wiped out the rest. And that happened with a lot of the plants all the way down, especially in this middle row. They really liked going after this middle row. So by the time I got them under control and you know, taken care of, there weren't a lot of tomatoes left on the vines, and then it got too hot for them to set new fruits. So what I actually did was, where the main stalks were, I just cut them back to where like new growth was coming in. So like here, I cut it off here for this black strawberry to focus its energy on growing this stem right here, which surprisingly, there are some fruits on this one, even though it's been a bazillion degrees for a bazillion days. So that's kind of what I did all the way down. There are some plants that I am going to come back and just completely remove, simply because I think that they're getting too sick. Like this one here, I think this one is a giant Syrian, and the larger varieties don't tend to do well here anyway. So I think that one is just, it's too hot and it doesn't care to live its life anymore. So there's a few that I'm going to cut down just because I don't think that they're going to be able to pull through the heat wave and do anything meaningful. However, there are some that are looking pretty good that I think I'm going to be able to get a fall run from. This one was Texas Wild. It also made my top 10 list purely because it was the most prolific tomato I've ever seen in my entire life. We got probably hundreds of tomatoes off of the Texas Wild plant. I'm just trying to see if there's anything else that's kind of worth seeing. Back here, the marigolds, these were like African varieties, so they got really tall. Another tomato plant that has really healthy tops, but kind of crunchy down lower. This is a variety of Thai basil. It's doing pretty well. You can use this in Thai curries, Vietnamese pho. You can also make tea with this. You can blend it up with your other basils. It's perfectly, I mean, it's basil. It just has a different structure to it than like the Italian sweet basil, and it does taste different too. This one is my favorite basil. This is blue spice. It has like, I almost want to say like a vanilla note to it. So it's really good in tea if you mix it with like the cinnamon basil or the holy basil or the lemon basil or all of those, and then you just have this wonderful crafted blend of iced tea that's so refreshing. I do have some calendulas here. Oops, sorry. Calendulas. They're just really struggling with the heat. And then I think this started out as purple ruffles, but as it grew, it turned green, which is fine. This one was definitely purple ruffles. You can kind of see a little bit of the purple down in the veins. It started out like a deep mottled purple and green, and then as it grew, it all turned green. But I do plan on saving the seeds and, you know, replanting next year. That's kind of the gist of this section. I planted so much basil to be companion plants for the tomatoes to help repel hornworms, and it did work. However, it only worked in the containers that it's planted in. So if I still have tomatoes in containers next year, I will need basil in every container, which is going to be a wild trip to go down, and I'll have basil running out of my ears. But you know, I'm creating an ecosystem here, and that's kind of what you do. You companion plant, you bring in diversity. The dill did really well. I was able to get several swallowtail caterpillars, you know, through their caterpillar life cycle, and I'm pretty sure they're butterflies by now, living their best life. My apologies, the wind just randomly picked back up. Okay, so this is the other end of the flower bed that I showed you down there, but there are more varieties of zinnias that are already blooming. I think that this was a lily-put mix that was planted. The flower heads are much smaller, and we have several colors here. So that's like a burnt orange type color, and then like a fuchsia hot pink. This one's more red, and then we have like a little baby pink here. Lots of weeds. I need to come here and weed. It's just been too hot to come out here and manage dealing with the garden and everything. And then more Kilimanjaro marigold. Like I said, it's so hot that whenever it blooms, it just looks terrible. It'll bounce back once it cools down though, and then it'll be like the big, beautiful, fluffy marigolds. This is cow peas planted throughout here, and one kale that randomly became a perennial. I'm not going to eat the leaves off of this just yet. It's so hot, it will be so bitter and so disgusting. So I'm just waiting for it to get cold before I eat that. But I have harvested a couple of pea pods off of here. I've actually planted this twice because the top row, these pockets were the only ones that grew the first time that I planted it. So I replanted it and now it's doing a lot better. I just have to keep it watered really well because it's so hot that it's just frying really quickly. But I have several varieties here in the south. For New Year's, we eat black-eyed peas for luck, so I decided this year I will grow my own luck. So hopefully it works out. Otherwise it'll be a very unlucky 2024. My lime tree, it is actually looking pretty good. I need to do some nutrient stuff for it. It did have a few limes growing, but they fell off, and I think that there is a deficiency of some sort that I need to address in order for the fruits to actually stay on there. But the tree overall is looking healthy. It has a lot more leaves than it did at the beginning of the season, so that's a good thing. Vigo Garden has a new container on wheels that has like a self-watering mechanism in the bottom that we actually want to transplant this tree into. We just have to figure out how we're going to move it, you know, in the house or into the garage whenever it's going to be too cold for the tree to be outside. Once we solve that issue, I will probably get the raised bed for the tree, and then it will be able to grow big and fluffy and give us all the limes for margaritas. That's kind of the gist of the garden right now. Like I said, it's really hot. Everything's overheated and stressed out and ready for cooler weather, including myself. Gonna sit. There we go. Now the sun isn't like right in my face. But yes, that's the gist of the August garden at the moment. It's kind of starting to be transitioned over for fall plantings. I actually have some fall garden stuff that I need to be doing today and this week, which will also be in a video that's coming out. So we'll have some root vegetable seeds that are getting planted, some collard greens that are getting planted. I'll be removing some tomato plants and amending those containers, getting things ready for that. I have some seeds started inside. I'll go over all of that in an upcoming fall garden planning video for you guys. Plus I have, you know, other videos coming out really soon. But that is all I have for the garden tour for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope to see you come back for the next video, but until then, I hope you guys have a wonderful week.